999ers risk their lives every day, keeping us safe.
My heart was racing, but you just do it because you're a police officer.
But all too often, they're abused and attacked.
I have been punched, kicked, spat at, sworn at. I think most of us have.
These personal attacks on police, firefighters and paramedics are at an all-time high.
I could feel the blood running through my shirt.
He grabbed me around the throat with both his hands,
Leaving them traumatised and unable to work.
It's then left me questioning, is this the job that I want to carry on with?
But while the violent criminals responsible are hunted down and brought to justice, our protectors fight to get well and back on the job.
I'm not going to get beaten by somebody decided they're going to try and hurt me.
Ready to face the next critical incident.
Stand still! Police and taser, show yourself!
Coming up, a police officer puts himself between a man wielding 3 knives and his colleagues.
He said he was going to stab us. I thought to myself, this is the first time I could be in real trouble here. I could foresee that turning and trying to get into the car would have been an issue. Luckily, being a taser officer, there was an option there for me to disarm him.
And in Yorkshire, a paramedic acts fast when a patient turns a gun on him.
The immediate reaction was just to get out of the way that we couldn't be shot at. It was a few seconds of being dumbfounded as to what have we come to here. A simple welfare check's turned into having a gun pointed at us.
And in Warwickshire, police are using specialist high-speed pursuit tactics.
Pursuit isn't safe, but we try and make it as safe as possible. Communication is definitely the #1 thing that has a successful resolution of a pursuit.
Taser is a device used by frontline police officers across the UK to de-escalate a potentially violent or dangerous situation. Tasers were first authorised for use by police in 2004. In 2007, they began to be issued to non-firearms officers. By the end of 2019, in England and Wales, nearly 1/5 of the police force were taser trained.
So if we were presented with a threat and I've withdrawn taser, I would turn it on, let them see the red dots, present the red dots to them. The officer with taser, down on the floor. If they haven't gone down on the floor, I would perhaps give them what we call an arc warning, where we turn the taser on and show them what it's capable of doing. Police officer with taser, down on the floor. If we still have a threat presented to us at this stage, we'd then consider firing.
A taser shoots out 50,000 volts.
Body can withstand an enormous amount of volts. It's the amps that can cause harm to somebody. So the ampage on these is extremely low and the volts are quite high, so that they incapacitate people effectively. The ideal shot is above and below the belt, the waist. It'll incapacitate the legs by shooting one barb into the legs and incapacitate part of the upper body by the upper barb hitting the upper body. And in essence, they won't be able to balance and they will fall over.
To be issued with a taser, police officers must have completed 18 hours minimum training and are required to undergo a compulsory refresher course every year.
Tasers are becoming increasingly important in policing. We see increases in knife crime and also assaults on officers. And whilst communication continues to be the most important tool available to an officer, and we will always look to de-escalate a situation, clearly there will be occasions where we need to use force.
This doesn't count because I'm going to start cycling to work from next week.
Sergeant Chris Wright is a taser-trained officer for the Avon and Somerset Police.
How far away do you live?
A mile and a half.
He strongly believes the device is an essential piece of kit.
I think that all officers should be armed with taser. The amount of officers that get assaulted here in Bristol on a daily basis is unacceptable. When I was first given my taser 2-3 years ago, I did feel the pressure. You were going to jobs that you weren't in your comfort zone in. However, as time goes on, you get used to it.
Carrying a taser does hold a real responsibility for officers. We know there's a lot of public interest in relation to the carrying and use of taser, and an officer must be able to remain calm under pressure and be able to justify the use in a proportionate and legal way.
Being a taser operator, you get called to all the incidents where weapons are mentioned or you have an extremely volatile person at the scene. Its presence usually has a very effective job, just having it on your chest or withdrawing it from its holster and informing the suspect that you have a taser. It usually does its job and calms the situation down. Only on 2 occasions have I had to pull the trigger.
And one of those occasions was on the 16th of June 2020, when he and a colleague, PC Matt Hodgkins, faced an extremely aggressive armed man.
We were in a suburb of Bristol. My colleagues were asked to attend an incident whereby someone may have a knife. I turned the car around with Matt and we decided to go and give him a hand. It was important I got there quickly. Found the address, got out of the car, looked up to the first floor balcony, and there was in fact a gentleman there waving 3 knives around. It was a long balcony, a walkway, and there were members of the public either side of him. I was concerned that they may get involved in the incident and not knowing what he may do with these knives.
Let's get these sort of guys back in there flat.
Chris immediately started minimising the risk to the residents. He got them back into their flats, started managing the scene. I started trying to engage with the male himself, tried to see if I could de-escalate, find out a bit of information. I got very little positive response from him. He seemed to be somebody who was quite anti-police and told me to F off, as well as a lot of other things.
What are you got to do? Go on, take calm down, calm down, calm down, calm down.
He was pacing around, he was clearly angry.
I decided to see if I could try and open the door. I wanted to assess whether this was a locked door, whether we could gain entry quickly if we needed to. And I think he saw me attempt to try and enter the property and perhaps thought I was going to go and confront him.
At that, I heard him say, "I'm going to stab you in the throats," and started to move towards the stairway.
137 says he's going to come and stab us. Can you get firearms here, please?
So a lot of things were going through our head at that point. We didn't know where he was. He obviously knows the building far better than we do, so he could have been, you know, a few minutes running around sort of hallways to get down, or he could have been on us in seconds.
Concerned he and his colleagues are in imminent danger, Chris makes a drastic decision.
I told my colleagues to get into hard cover. I told them to get into their cars.
Get in the cars, guys. In the cars.
Hard cover is something that we talk about in training every so often, but it's something that I never had to use before. It's where you're putting a firm object between yourself and the risk. So you may put a wall, you may put a building there. In this case, it was cars.
My 2 colleagues were able to make it to their car, which is where we could have gotten in and locked ourselves in and await sort of backup from firearms. Chris and I were in the process of heading to our car when the male appeared at the security door behind us.
102, he has now come down to ground level. He has 2 large knives.
When I first saw the gentleman armed with the knives, I wasn't too worried straight away. We see people with weapons a lot, and frequently it's to self-harm and it's a cry for help. But on this occasion, the motive was very different. He said he was going to stab us, and he quickly moved down to get in a position where he could do. I thought to myself, this is the first time I could be in real trouble here.
No.
He was walking towards us quickly, chest out, arms out, with 2 knives in one hand, one in another, and an aggressive look on his face.
In a situation like that, there's always a degree of fear that you feel. There's somebody who's quite clearly shown they have intentions to harm you, and they have the means to do it. He was in possession of three large kitchen knives. So there was definitely a degree of fear. It was definitely one of those moments that we say, you know, fight or flight.
I could foresee that turning and trying to get into the car would have been an issue, would have turned our backs to him, and it perhaps would have put the focus on the 2 officers that were then sat in their car, which was closer to him.
No.
Luckily, being a taser officer, there was an option there for me to disarm him. At that point, he was about 30 feet away, which is a bit too far for a taser to accurately shoot. You only have a limited number of shots, and you want to make sure that when you're taking a shot, you're going to hit. We walked towards each other until we were about 12 foot away, when I could get a good and accurate shot in, and then I discharged the taser.
Later, Chris's quick actions have de-escalated a dangerous situation.
I'd never seen a taser be deployed at this point. I'd never seen how effective it could be.
Police, put it down! Put that down now!
In 2019, Kent Police saw one of the largest rollouts of tasers seen in England.
You got a taser?
Get a torch on him, get a torch on him.
Taser, officer! I have a taser here!
This was triggered by an increase in violence against police officers.
Put the hammer down now!
Something Chief Constable Alan Poosley feels very strongly about.
Tasers are massively important in this current day and age. On many occasions, the violence de-escalates as soon as they see the very visible yellow object being carried by my officers and staff. And that's just having it physically on their being. There are a number of elements then before they actually get to the stage of firing a taser. They can show it, they can arc it, they can red dot it. All of these things are a build-up to escalating and de-escalating the violence.
Taser, taser! Get him, get him!
And in my view, it's a correct tool to ultimately protect the public by protecting my officers.
In December 2020, Kent police officers used taser to de-escalate a situation when they responded to reports of a man with a blade terrifying members of the public.
Taser, taser!
In this clip, body-worn cameras capture the moment they arrive at one house to find the offender.
Get on your front! Get on your front! Stay back, stay back!
He'd broken into 2 properties on Christmas Eve and threatened the owners at knife point.
Hands behind your back! Do not make any sudden movements. Put them at the bottom of your back now! You're under arrest for burglary. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. You do not mention when questioned something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence.
In court, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of aggravated burglary, ABH, assaulting an emergency worker and possessing a bladed article. He was jailed for 8.5 years. Back in Bristol, Sergeant Chris Wright and PC Matt Hodgkins have been called to a high-risk situation where a man was wielding 3 large knives at a block of residential flats.
He said he was going to stab us,
He's got this in that throat.
and he quickly moved down to get in a position where he could do.
With the public and his colleagues at risk, taser-trained Chris fired his weapon for only the 2nd time in his career.
We walked towards each other until we were about 12 foot away, when I could get a good and accurate shot in, and then I discharged the taser. When it comes to firing the taser, we do it so often in training that it turns almost into a training exercise for me.
Handcuffs on.
We do it so repetitively that we have a muscle memory, and as soon as you pull it out, you're stood in a certain stance, you're holding the weapon in a certain way, and it feels fairly natural. But at the same time, you're aware that this isn't a training exercise. If this doesn't work, things could go seriously wrong.
The ground level, he has 2 large knives.
Tasered. He's been tasered.
I got close enough to be able to take a decent and accurate shot, and I did. It was quite bright sunlight that day, so I couldn't see where the red dots were on his body. So it was an element of luck there, but both barbs went in, and he fell straight to the floor.
Get the knives away, get the knives away.
So I kept the charge on the taser, which we call cuffing under power, and asked my colleagues to come in, kick the knives away, and arrest the gentleman and put some handcuffs on him.
During the handcuffing process, a degree of the shock was passed in through to me. This was because where the placement of the barbs was, I was directly placing the handcuffs where the charge was going. So I took a degree of the shock myself, which did hurt. It's a little bit like touching an electric fence, so I felt like I'd been punched in the arm a couple of times.
Yeah, he's handcuffed. Yeah, lovely. Taser.
I'd never seen a taser be deployed at this point. I'd never seen how effective it could be. I'd obviously I'd seen body cam footage of this happening before, but you know, it's a totally different thing when you see it for real, just how effective it can be. So to see Chris use it and manage it so well was really impressive.
Chris's actions on the day were outstanding. The incident was a high-risk incident, and anyone would have been frightened in those circumstances, but Chris remained calm under pressure. And what really impressed me about this was his great communication, but also, crucially, his quick decision-making and quick actions, which brought this incident to a safe conclusion without injury to either the officer, the public, or the subject himself.
At the moment, because you've been out in public with these knives, making threats, all right?
I'm not making threats. Make threats to you.
Being a possession of...
The offender is placed under arrest. But Chris is all too aware of how different things could have been.
If I hadn't been there, I think the outcome would have been extremely serious. We had a very keen officer trying to meet our suspect on the stairwell. I don't think that would have ended well. And we had 2 other officers trying to calm the situation down and move members of the public away. I think there would have been serious injury or worse to those officers.
All right, everyone all right? We're lucky the taser worked. Very lucky.
A taser in this incident was absolutely vital. He was walking towards a number of officers, telling them he was going to stab them, and the only thing that prevented him from doing that was a taser.
You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioning something which you later rely on in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence.
The offender was charged with possession of a knife, affray, and assault by beating. He was sentenced to 12 months in prison.
We're part of a big team. We have a duty. We've got to look after each other. So we've got to put our uniform on the next day and go again. You can't dwell too much on what's happened previously.
I've been to incidents where we've had threats and we've had risk. I've had somebody try and pull me in front of moving traffic before, and I was able to manage that, whereas this situation was a man with 3 kitchen knives with obvious real intent to harm us. So for me, it was probably the most dangerous situation I've been in.
As a recent new father, it does put a different spin on things. Before, when you've been in slightly sticky situations, it's just you. You're just worrying about yourself or your colleagues. But when you have people relying on you, when you have your own family at home, it does make you reflect. It makes you think about what could have happened, what situation your family would then be in, and whether it's all worthwhile.
In January this year, Chris's brave actions were recognised.
I received a Chief Constable's commendation. It was a surprise. I didn't know it was coming. It was a shock because my colleagues and I deal with dangerous situations every day. But to be singled out was really nice. To be invited to meet with Chief Constable and discuss the incident, receive a box of chocolates was very nice.
From my perspective, the commendation that Chris received was really well deserved. It was a fantastic piece of policing. It's really important that we recognise and commend officers in relation to this kind of good work, where they put themselves at risk to protect others.
Drug dealing on Belmont Street Eastern, large number of males gathering in Belmont Street throughout the day and evening.
Chris, at this job, demonstrated all the requirements to be a leader. He was able to manage the scene. He was able to ensure the welfare of all of his colleagues, and he took just a complete leadership role over the whole thing. He completely took charge as soon as he arrived, which is what a natural leader does.
That's it, have a good shift.
Still to come, a paramedic in Yorkshire is subjected to the most shocking ordeal when he's on a routine call-out.
It was after that it suddenly struck as to what had actually happened, and then left me questioning, really, is this the job that I want to carry on with?
And in Warwickshire, highly skilled police drivers show what they're made of.
Just coming our way. Control Tango 3, subject vehicles just past us at speed.
They're able to handle the speed because they're highly trained officers.
Paramedics across the UK work tirelessly, often doing long, unsociable shifts, but they do it because they're passionate about the job.
Every day is different, every patient's different, every scenario's different, and when the day's over, the day's over. It begins again the next day. Quick, high-intensity jobs are the things that I love.
In Huddersfield, Martin David is a dedicated member of the Yorkshire Ambulance Service.
I decided to join the ambulance service nearly 20 years ago when I got made redundant. I was in marketing before that and I wanted a career change. I wanted something a little bit less stressful, so I've joined the ambulance service and it's been the best decision I've made.
As a long-serving paramedic, Martin has witnessed huge changes in the call-outs they attend.
In the 20 years I've been here, I've noticed that the call volume has increased drastically. When I started, most people would only phone if it was a matter of life and death. Now we're there for almost a GP replacement service at times because they can't see a GP. It's out of hours. We're there for welfare checks.
A welfare check is something paramedics and police often get called to when a friend or relative hasn't heard from someone for a while and has concerns for their well-being.
The thing I find quite challenging about welfare checks, usually they're third-party calls, so people aren't expecting us. We're arousing people in the middle of the night. We're walking into situations that we don't know what we're walking into, safety-wise. So it's probably the most unpredictable of the jobs that we do.
And it was on a welfare check in the early hours of April 2020 that Martin was exposed to one of the most traumatic incidents of his career.
I remember us getting a job, it was around 3:15 in the morning. We'd just finished a break and it come through as a welfare check for a 70-year-old male that had pressed his care buzzer, but they couldn't get hold of him. There was a warning on the screen that the police and an ambulance crew had attended that address earlier in the day, and the police had gone in and found some replica firearms and some air rifles and stuff in the house. But because they were deemed to be safe, they were actually left with the person. Although he had admitted, and it had actually come on our screen, that he'd been shooting at birds that day. So we proceeded with caution. It was a routine job, so it weren't going on lights and sirens.
They pulled into a cul-de-sac and left the ambulance.
We walked up an embankment away from the vehicle. We'd already seen a couple of dead birds across the road and we thought perhaps that's what he'd been shooting at earlier in the day, which, to be fair, was a distance of probably about 50 yards. So we assumed he'd got quite a powerful air rifle. We walked up to the door. We were banging on the door for a while, getting no response. A neighbour came out and said, yeah, he's in the flat, he's heard him moving around. We carried on knocking and he eventually came down to the door but said he couldn't find his key. We went back up to his flat and we were talking to him. We were at street level, he was at the first floor window. He asked us why we were there. We said he'd pressed his care buzzer and he'd not replied when they tried contacting him back. It was then that he said, well, my phone's not been working. My colleague turned around and said, can't you get one of your family members to get you a new phone so this doesn't happen again? And that was as simple as that, and that's when he became very, very aggressive to us. Pointed the barrel of a rifle out of the window. The immediate reaction was just to get out of the way that we couldn't be shot at. And then it was a few seconds of being dumbfounded as to what have we come to here. A simple welfare checks turned into having a gun pointed at us. And then the thought processes start. Obviously we need to get the police here, but we also need to get ourselves out of the situation just in case he does leave the flat with the gun. We asked him to put the gun away. He started getting quite abusive with us. The gun barrel actually disappeared into the window, and then he threw out a big picture frame which smashed on the floor near us, and the gun came back out. We decided the next time that the gun barrel went in the window that we were going to do the best we can to get back to the ambulance. I've not had anyone have quite a reaction like that. For someone to get so aggressive so quickly from such an innocent question, we had no history on him. We saw his age was 70, so we thought that this isn't going to happen. It's more likely that he's had a fall, he's had a medical emergency, that's what we were walking into. It was totally unexpected that he had this reaction.
Martin knew if they made a wrong move, it could be catastrophic. So he relied on some vital training he'd received at work.
I've done some previous training within the ambulance service based on firearms attacks. It had been drilled into us to get out of line of sight and line of fire, which we did. And it was a case of thinking things through, what we're going to do next, how we're going to handle it. So you don't let your emotions get involved at that time. You try to think clearly. And I've found with every incident I've done in the job that has been high stress, I don't notice anything at the time. I can handle things quite coolly, and that actually proved to be invaluable. The insight it gave me meant that I could keep us relatively safe.
Martin radioed for urgent police assistance. They made a run for the ambulance, and once inside, drove to the end of the street.
I think it took probably about 45 minutes for the police to actually get to us. Waiting for the police assistance was quite an anxious time because it did start to then sink in what had happened. The thoughts and emotions started to come out of what are we become involved with, and the longer that went on, I think the more anxious we were getting. What do we do from here? What's happening next?
When the police arrived, they arrested the gunman.
The police actually got entry into his house, and apparently he turned around to the officers because they told us and said, I suppose you're here because I pointed a gun at those two. So he admitted it straight away, which seemed to be a relief for us because I thought, well, he's admitted it.
Later, Martin is left disappointed with his attacker's sentence.
Felt a little bit of a letdown in that it almost says, well, they're not going to be penalised for it.
But he finds a distraction that helps him back to work.
The concentration element of doing martial arts is the thing that really brings me back into the moment. If I'm thinking about the day when I'm training, I'm likely to get a fist in the face and get injured.
It's a silver Vauxhall Quarter. Please come with the blue lights, visual with you, thanks. The stolen vehicle is in the right-hand lane, just as excess speed 100 miles an hour. It's a failed stop. It's a failed stop.
High-speed pursuits are among the many challenges the police face, and it's one that officers try to avoid. But when an offender is determined to get away, it may be their only option to catch them.
We can't just pursue things because we want to. It could be crime-related, it could be somebody in emotional or mental distress, it could be drink or drug-related, but there must be a reason for it.
Yes, information, it's a possibility. This is the vehicle that's been doing the co-op robberies. They may be armed with crowbars and hammers. 5-4, this vehicle has already collided with police cars.
Ultimately, we want to bring that pursuit safely to an end. The pursuit isn't safe, but we try and make it as safe as possible.
Rich Jenkins has been with the Warwickshire Police as a pursuit driver for 13 years. And it's been the perfect role for this petrolhead.
I like driving cars, I like riding motorbikes. The more cars I drive and more different motorbikes I ride, the better. Just the freedom of being out on the road is great.
The downside of this job, of course, is dealing with serious incidents on the roads.
Collisions, combating crime. We also deal with the Fatal 4, which is combating the use of mobile phones, make sure people wear their seatbelts, excess speed and driving with drink or drugs, so the most contributory factor to fatal collisions. Dealing with the serious collisions and fatalities does put extra pressure on you. You see sights that you wouldn't ever want to see.
Rich is now a tactical driving trainer for the force, and he and his colleagues provide what they call T-PAC training to get officers to their highest level.
TPAC means Tactical Pursuit Containment. It's for the roads policing, firearms and some proactive teams that we have in force and around the country. It basically means it's the tactical side of pursuits. So you get the initial phase, which would be some standard response drivers and some advanced drivers, but the tactical phase means you're the creme de la creme of advanced drivers. And it's a hard course. Appreciate some of the public don't like pursuits or don't think we should be pursuing criminals because it is dangerous, and they are right, it is dangerous. But the idea of TPAC is to safely deal with those pursuits.
TPAC training involves running scenarios based on real-life incidents, and it all happens on public roads.
We have to train for reality. We expect our trained drivers to deal with the hazards of the environment. It's a real pressured situation, and it'd actually be quite simple to do it on an airfield. If you do it on live roads with minimum disruption to the public, it trains them for what they might expect.
Today, Rich and his colleagues are running a refresher course for some previously qualified officers.
So these are all experienced Operations Patrol Unit officers. We've got a mixture. We've got 3 firearms officers and 2 traffic patrol officers. Every 3 years, they've got to come back and refresh the skill.
One of the tactics being tested in today's training is the Stinger. And this footage shows just how effective the piece of kit is.
Stinger is a strip of spikes. The device is dragged across a road or thrown across a road in front of the subject vehicle. The spikes get detached from the system into the tyres of the subject vehicle, and it does a controlled slowing and deflation of that tyre, allowing it to slow down the pursuit and bring the car to a stop.
Vehicle stung.
We'd rather deploy a Stinger system to the vehicle to get it stopped safely prior to putting blue lights and sirens on, purely to prevent a pursuit.
The scenario will be a known criminal in a vehicle in Warwick Town Centre. The police vehicles will pick it up quite early and it'll probably react to the police, and a pursuit will ensue quite quickly. There'll be specific intelligence that the vehicle will be travelling along this road. So what Dom is doing at the moment, he's setting up a Stinger device so that we've got a method of stopping the car quite easily. Craig to Al, Stinger's in position, we're ready to go when you are.
Okay, all received.
The Stinger is dragged into place to bring the pursuit to an end.
Perfect resolution to a pursuit. Stinger's our preferred option, generally, because it takes the speed out of the pursuit. It's our most important tactic. We've got other methods of dealing with a pursuit and bringing it to a safe conclusion, but this is ultimately the safest method.
It's actually really difficult to deploy a Stinger effectively. You've got to be able to throw out a wobbly bit of plastic containing 150 odd spikes and make it deploy across the carriageway in time of a vehicle travelling at you at 70 miles an hour. It's a skill in its own.
Lane 2, 100 lane 2, keep the quarter, lovely, 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 keep it on, keep it on, keep it on.
This footage shows another tactic used by officers to end a pursuit, known as boxing.
You two, try and get your passing manoeuvres.
Boxing on the motorway is getting a number of police resources and tactical units at our disposal. It creates a working area, so it manages to keep the members of the public away from the pursuits. And then we've got a section of empty tarmac, effectively, to try and surround the subject vehicle. It's a way of containing the subject into that area to bring it safely to a stop.
One detained, no police injuries, no damage to police vehicles. Good work, good work.
Big Falcon, you ready?
Rich and his TPAC training team are taking the officers out on the motorway today to test their boxing tactics. And it'll be as realistic as possible.
That's received. My tactics will be either a box to stop the vehicle or Stinger sight, depending on if it fails to stop, should we get behind it. I'm considering.
What I'm looking at for today is calmness, consistency, a knowledge of the tactics and how the tactics work, how they implement them, and how they resolve that pursuit safely and work as a team.
Thank you. Keep your ears on.
I am the subject vehicle driver, which means that I am driving the unmarked car. It could be the stolen vehicle, it could be involved in serious crime, and it is me that they need to stop. They need to be absolutely switched on. They're under no illusion. If they don't achieve the required standard, then they will be taken away from their driving role. Ultimately, it could be their career path that ends as a result of failing to attain the standard required.
The pressure is on, and now so is the pursuit.
Coming our way.
Yeah.
Control Tango 3, subject vehicle has just passed us at speed on the Warwick Road. We're just trying to make ground.
The pursuit commander uses his radio comms to direct his team into position.
In a pursuit, you've got to try and second guess what the subject car might do, where your colleagues are. Communication is definitely the #1 thing that has a successful resolution of a pursuit.
As soon as I've got all the units with me, my intention is to get past the subject vehicle, and then we can start looking at the tactic to get the box off further down.
Good, well done. We want to try and get cars ahead of the vehicle and allow them to drive into the box.
Coming up quick, moving lane 2. It's lane 1.
At speeds of 130 miles per hour, the police cars surround the subject car on all sides. He has nowhere to run.
Stand by. On shoulder.
As the police slow down, the subject vehicle is forced to slow as well. He is trapped, and it's game over.
There's some of the speeds, whereas 130 or 140 mile an hour today, they're able to handle the speeds because they're highly trained officers. The criminals out there, they will use those speeds to get away from us. That's how it's important for us to be able to drive and use our tactical minds at those speeds.
Training day is over, and it's now down to Rich and his colleagues to assess the drivers and deliver a pass or fail on their tests.
Some officers, they dream of taking that course and passing it. They find it as the pinnacle of a roads police officer or firearms officer to add to their skill base to effectively deal with pursuits. Sometimes if they don't pass, then unfortunately their job role might be in jeopardy. So yeah, it's really important for them.
Fortunately, all the officers pass their TPAC training and remain at the top of their game.
Yeah, really pleased with today. They've worked really hard. They've managed to all show competency in the tactic, in managing the pursuit and bringing the pursuit into a safe halt. I do love my job. I love getting the best out of people. I do like it when the students at the end of the day say, that was a great day. You know, we really enjoyed it. So it's a really privileged position to be in.
Back in Huddersfield, paramedic Martin David has been attacked on a routine call-out.
I've not had anyone have quite a reaction like that. For someone to get so aggressive so quickly from such an innocent question.
In the months after the incident, Martin struggled to come to terms with his terrifying ordeal.
I didn't realise it at the time, but I've been told by people around me that I seemed very blasé about it for a day, 2 days, 3 days. It was after that that it suddenly struck as to what had actually happened, and then left me questioning, really, is this the job that I want to carry on with?
Martin's a very strong character. Not a lot phases Martin. He's done the job probably for as long as I've been alive, and he's a very good, very strong clinician, but immediately I could see on his face that that had deeply affected him. He was struggling to come to work. He was struggling to get onto an ambulance because he feared that it would happen again, and it's not an uncommon thing. There's many of us that struggle with anxiety and stress following the trauma, and it's just about recognising it and making sure that you help them in any way, shape or form that they need.
Eventually, the case went to Leeds Crown Court, and the perpetrator decided that after a few preliminary hearings he was going to plead guilty. So it was a big relief probably about February time that we found out that we didn't have to go and attend court and give evidence.
The man was charged with possessing an imitation firearm with intent to cause fear of violence, and was given a 1-year suspended prison sentence and a 10-year ban from possessing firearms.
Being given a year suspended sentence felt a little bit of a letdown, in that it almost says, well, nothing's really going to happen to somebody. They're not going to be penalised for it unless the gun had been fired.
Ultimately, I think if someone does attack frontline workers, that they should be prosecuted and punished for it. I don't think we are protected enough.
And on reflection, 99% of the people we deal with are lovely, and you get such an immense sense of satisfaction from doing that, that I don't think I could replace that doing something else. Knowing that I've probably got another 15 years of work in me, I wanted to stick with it. It was then working out how I was going to stick with it.
Martin has trained in martial arts for nearly 40 years, but after his ordeal, he found it was key to his recovery.
I'm a Buddhist, so I meditate, so that definitely helps with the mental de-stressing. But the concentration element of doing martial arts is the thing that really brings me back into the moment. If I'm thinking about the day when I'm training, I'm likely to get a fist in the face and get injured. You learn to concentrate, you learn to relax, be present in the moment, and that's allowed me to then move on at work and do exactly the same at work. So the next patient's a new situation, a new patient, just be there, don't think about what's gone on before, because you can't change that, and that's certainly helped a great deal.
I come down here as much as I can and shifts allow, probably a couple of times a week. It's a traditional Japanese battlefield martial art, and as you can see behind, there's weaponry that we use as well. There's a lot of camaraderie at the club, but it's a stress reliever, it's a step away from work. We don't talk about our jobs here, it's just come, train, de-stress. It focuses your mind, and certainly when it comes to doing my job, I take bits of this with me.
I think the incident changed me temporarily. I think now I'm back to the person I was 2-3 years ago. I come into work every day, I'm happy to be here, I love doing the job I'm doing. I don't now go into jobs and think, what's going to happen to me today? I go in with a level of awareness, knowing that there's going to be something unexpected thrown at me at some stage, but I'm not fearing it, I'm not letting it change the way I work and change the person that I am.